campus dietitian. I am here again to talk about a plant-based diet. It is Earth Week, so this week we are focusing on eating more plants, being more sustainable, and saving the environment. So in the last video, we talked a little bit about what makes up a plant-based diet and what are your choices for a plant-based diet. And there are so many things that you can do just to increase your intake of plant-based proteins, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out about that. But today I want to focus more on some nutrients of concerns for vegetarians. So those specific vitamins and minerals that you just want to focus on because you are at risk for not getting enough. And typically what happens is these vitamins and minerals are found in primarily animal-based foods. So when you don't eat enough of those foods, you have to look even harder in the plant kingdom to try to find them. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is iron. A lot of the students that I work with on campus who are vegetarians, I always recommend getting your iron checked yearly by your physician in your lab work, just to see where you are. But some good guides, if you're feeling more tired, if you're having a really hard time keeping up in workouts, it might be a sign of iron deficiency. So what you want to do is focus on plant-based sources of iron every day, several times a day. So there are two types of iron. There's heme iron, which is your animal-based iron. So think about iron that comes from red meat, chicken, and poultry. And then there's the non-heme iron, which is your plant-based iron. That plant-based iron is tied up in fiber, which makes it a little bit more difficult for your body to break down and digest and absorb. So we want to help it out a little bit. So you can include foods like spinach, raisins, prunes, dark leafy greens. A lot of those things are great sources of iron, including lentils. And then once you have that plant iron, you want to give it some vitamin C to boost that absorption. So thinking about if you're having a spinach salad, squeezing orange juice or lemon on top or including bell peppers with your salad will give you a dose of vitamin C that helps you absorb that iron that's in that plant. So one thing you want to limit when you're trying to absorb iron is having a lot of dairy products and caffeine. Calcium tends to compete for the same kind of parking site or absorption site as iron. So if you have a high calcium or high dairy food mixed with your high iron food, you might not absorb as much iron. And as a plant-based eater, you want to make sure you're getting as much iron as you can. So making sure you're kind of splitting those up so don't have any yogurts or glasses of milk with your salads or high iron foods. The next one is protein. So we focus a little bit on proteins just because, plant proteins, they are a little bit harder to digest because of the fiber. So what you want to do is it's just sprinkle protein more frequently throughout the day. So my recommendation to make sure you're getting enough protein is to include a little bit of protein at every meal and snack. So for example, for a plant-based breakfast, you can have a tofu scramble or a plant-based yogurt. For lunch, including tempeh or beans on top of your salads or with your entree. Snacking on things like nuts and seeds. Roasted edamame is a great snack, high protein snack. So this is what you want to look for when you're trying to build your plate. And so you're including foods with iron, you're including foods with protein. The next nutrient of concern is calcium. So calcium, most people have been marketed pretty well by the dairy companies to think that calcium only comes from milk, and that's not necessarily true at all. Lots of leafy greens, broccoli, they all, kale, spinach, they all have some calcium in them. They're just not as absorbable as the calcium in dairy milk, but you can definitely get your calcium from vegetables. The other thing is a lot of foods are fortified with calcium. So things like tofu or tempeh, a lot of times they'll have calcium added to them. Even orange juice has some calcium in it. So, there's no problem getting your calcium as long as you're focusing on variety throughout the day of food. So if you are consistently eating the same things over and over again, you might be missing out on some nutrients. So I recommend kind of upping your variety, increasing your diversity of choices, which will in a sense diversify your nutrient intake or vitamins and minerals. The last one is vitamin D. So vitamin D is really important for you to focus on because most people across the world are vitamin D deficient and they eat meat and they eat dairy products and they eat all those things that have vitamin D in them. As a plant-based eater, you don't eat as much vitamin D because it's mostly found in animal products. So you want to make sure that you're getting outside, getting some sunshine. Your body's able to make some vitamin D in your body. And then you're focusing on vitamin D fortified cereals, juices, milks, that sort of thing to make sure you're getting in enough vitamin D. Because vitamin D is incredibly important when it comes to your bone health, your immune system, and your muscle health. So, those are the things you really want to focus on when it comes to the plant based diet. You've got iron, protein, calcium, and vitamin D. And so, if you're sprinkling those foods throughout the day, giving yourself a lot of variety, you will have no problem balancing out a plant-based diet. But like we talked about in the last clip, you want to make sure that you are transitioning slowly. So don't just jump from a meat eater to vegan. Transition slowly from meat eater to flexitarian, pescatarian, and if you want to take it further, you can go to vegan or vegetarian. Just make that transition slowly so you make sure that you're getting all the nutrients you need to make sure you're fueling your brain, your muscles, and your bones.